Is this the one about Steve Grossman? No, this is somebody's interviewing me about Steve Grossman.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, but we can go into
No,
anything you're
no,
going
anything you want.
to. Well, basically, it's just called the Jazz Talk, and I'm having the chance to talk to some of my favorite musicians that are willing to talk a little bit. That's basically
Okay.
it. Yeah. Maybe you can.
Where are you now?
I'm in Zurich, Switzerland.
Oh, okay, sure. What's
Yeah.
okay.
I
Well,
I saw that you have been playing, but I didn't attend, unfortunately, in at the Birdseye in Basel,
Bird's Eye, yeah, that was
right?
fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that Did you combine it with teaching at the jazz campus, or you were just
No,
touring?
we just did. We had done 4 gigs in Spain,
Uh-huh.
Rasa, Madrid.
Uh-huh.
I forget the other name. Then San Sebastian. We took a train all the way from San Sebastian to Paris. Got off, ate lunch, took another train to Basel. Worked that night and the next night. Then took a train back to Paris and worked 3 nights in Paris and one night,
I
2 nights
see.
in Paris and one night right out of Paris.
Mm-hmm.
So didn't have a chance to do anything other than travel.
Mm-hmm. I see.
The jazz life, you know.
Reading books, or what are you doing when you're not able to blow into the horn or do something else?
Yeah, reading books,
Mm-hmm.
reading my, like everybody else, I'm on my
Mm-hmm.
iPhone checking out some news stories of, about how corrupt Donald Trump is and his cronies and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But reading books, yeah.
Uh-huh. Nice. Yeah. Uh, I just read that you started I think in school they gave you a clarinet first, or how did that happen?
Oh
Is
yeah.
there something true in
No,
that?
it was a funny story because they came around. I was 8 years old, and
Mm-hmm.
they played the lowest note on the piano and then the highest note, and they asked which note was the second note higher or lower than the first. 50% of us got it right, and they said we were musically gifted.
Mm-hmm.
What instrument would you like to play? So I said a trumpet. I said, no, according to this test, you'd be better off playing a clarinet, which was, of course, bullshit. They just wanted clarinet players for the marching band. So anyway, I started on clarinet and
Mm-hmm.
gradually moved to a saxophone. And my uncle, who lived upstairs, was a jazz musician. So the first recordings I listened to were Lester Young with the Count Basie band, and
Mm-hmm.
started listening to jazz right from the get go.
Was it the alto back then as a kid, or right away the
Well,
tenor?
I started with clarinet, and then I got an alto when I was uh, 12, and then at 13 I got a tenor,
Mm-hmm.
and then yeah, like most kids, it's just fun and games, and then all of it. When I was around 13 or 14 years old, maybe, I heard John Coltrane with Miles and Sonny Rollins and Wayne Shorter and all the other guys, and just said, "Wow, that's." And I lived in Watertown, which was right next door to Cambridge, which is next door to Boston.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to go every week and go to an LP store, and they had listening booths. It was
Mm-hmm.
called Briggs and Briggs, and they had 3 booths, and you could get a whole stack of records and go in there for a half hour and just check out. So they'd never bother me because I'd always buy something.
Mm-hmm.
I'd buy every couple of weeks. I'd go in and buy few records and listen to them all the time.
But those were great times when you could take a couple of CDs and went to listen. But these days, you first have to find a CD store. So
Yeah, back then there were no CDs; it's just LPs,
oh,
vinyl.
LPs even, yeah.
Yeah, vinyl. This is
Mm-hmm.
before CDs. Yeah, this is going way back.
Mm-hmm.
This is when you go to transcribe something, you get your needle and try to drop it right at the exact spot so you could, yeah, so you can hear that what you're trying to get.
Yeah. And so, was the music in the house too, from your family, from your parents, somehow?
Well, they listen like growing up. I remember, they'd play Frank Sinatra, being from
Mm-hmm.
an Italian American, and we listened to Dinah Washington and uh, people like that. Yeah, Dinah
Yeah.
Washington, Nancy Wilson. I remember listening to Ray Charles, Frank Sinatra, people like that, but I
Mhm.
not really jazz records. But then when I was interested, I started listening to jazz.
And your parents were playing music
No,
instruments? No,
no, no music. My uncle, who lived upstairs, was a jazz musician. He played
I see.
trombone, guitar, and bass.
Mhm. And was Dave Brubeck your first gig?
No, no. I was working. How old was I? Well, I started working with when I was in the eighth grade. I was 13 years old. I was in this
Mhm.
group called the Stardusters. It was just kids from the high school, and one of the parents got us together, and they started a band, and they got this arranger who was a cousin of Frank Sinatra. His name was Joe Sinatra,
Mm.
and he used to write arrangements for us. God knows how awful we sounded, but we had a lot of fun. And then when I was in high school, I'd be playing different gigs here and there, and I was in John. I started studying with Joe Viola, who was
Mhm.
the really a great saxophone teacher and an amazing musician at Berkeley College School of Music at the time.
Mhm.
And then I was in John Laporta's youth band from the greater Boston area. I was taking arranging lessons from a student at Berkeley. His name was Steve Gould. He was a trombone player. We're still good friends today. And yeah, it's just
Mhm.
how it happens. Just one thing leads to another.
Was John Laporta playing clarinet with you guys there in that band, or?
No, he did. He was just uh, directing the band.
I see.
It was yeah. We were all kids. We were in the high school, and
Mhm.
he had been in the scene for a long time and was a
Mhm.
professional. And so he'd bring in charts, some of the charts that he wrote, and other charts. And he was
Mhm.
great inspiration because not only would he tell us what to do, but he would tell us what we were doing wrong. He didn't have any
Mhm.
qualms about stopping the band and looking at somebody and telling them, "Look, you need to do this."
Mhm.
It was a great learning experience.
Wasn't he the director of Berkeley before Gary Burton, or somebody in between there?
No, he was never the
No,
director of
no,
Berkeley, not that I know of. The director
I
of
thought so.
Yeah, no, he was
No,
no,
no.
but he was, up there on all the teachers like Herb Pomeroy,
Mhm.
John Laporter, uh, quite a few of them, but Andy McGee was a saxophone teacher. Uh, yeah, I don't even remember now.
Sure.
Yeah,
But it's interesting that, I mean, I would, well, I can just talk for myself. My introduction to you was with the great books that you have published,
yes, yeah,
Inside Improvisation,
yeah,
but with published by Advanced Music. That's
yes,
how I got across your playing, even from the play-alongs where you showed stuff how it's supposed to
yeah,
sound once you achieve that. But can you share a little bit about those recordings and playings with Dave Brubeck? I'm not sure how many
yeah.
people are
Well,
into that stage of your life.
you asked me how I was playing gigs, and when I was in college, going to Lowell State Teachers College at the time, I couldn't afford Berkeley, even though I was studying at Berkeley in high school, and I was a featured soloist in the great, in John Laporta's youth band.
Hmm.
They didn't want to give me any money to go to school because they were cheap. So I went to the cheapest school I could because a state teacher school, college. So they used to throw me out of the practice room for practicing jazz. They didn't like jazz, but I used to go home every day and just practice at my apartment all day. Probably driving the neighbors crazy, I'm sure. But I didn't think much of it. But at the time, I was playing with this avant-garde clarinet player, Bob Fritz, and he was good friends with Darius Brubeck. So Darius Brubeck would come up from Wilton, Connecticut, where Dave Brubeck lived, and we'd play concerts. And I played several concerts with Darius. So when I finally moved to New York in the end of 1972, I got a phone call from Darius. Would you like to join my group? Because my father, Dave Brubeck, is going to take my group on the road with his, and there's going to be something called Two Generations of Brubeck.
Hmm.
We'll go on first, play the first set. He'll play the second set, and we'll all go on and play a third set, or encore, three or four tunes, 4 or 5 tunes.
Hmm.
So that's how it started. and then I got to play with Paul Desmond and Jerry Mulligan because of that, and
Mhm.
Dave. And then I stopped playing with him for 3 years, and then Dave called me up one day. He said, "I want to put a new quartet together, with you in the band." So I got to play with in that situation for 3 years, just a quartet.
Mhm.
So that's how that all happened. And
Mhm.
when I finally got through that, I started teaching, and somebody said, "Man, you should put all the stuff that you teach in a book." So I got my wife to put my thoughts into the English language.
Uh-huh.
She's a piano player, and she majored in English in college.
Mhm.
So she could write sentences that made sense and things like that. But it was things that I taught myself. So
Mhm.
stuff that I was teaching other people. So I just they weren't in chronological order, but I just put them in a book format, and they seemed people liked them, and
Mhm.
yeah, that's what happened.
This was in your 20s, 30s that you
Oh, this is
published those books?
that I started writing these books were in my
Y-
30s.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
So you were teaching besides playing gigs always since you
No,
can imagine,
when
or?
I got off the road with Dave Brubeck, I was
Uh-huh.
trying to make a living, so I started teaching privately.
Mhm.
And I moved back to Boston from New York City. Oh, I had already moved back. Yeah, so I stopped working with him because I was tired of traveling. I wanted to play, different music.
Mhm.
I wasn't really tired of traveling. I was just basically tired of, I wanted to pursue some different musical avenues.
Sure. Mhm.
But I had to make a living, so I put the word out there that I teach. And before long, I had a 2-year waiting list of people who wanted to study with me. I couldn't teach them all. They had to wait 2 years if they wanted to
Mhm.
study. All the teachers at Berkeley were studying with me.
Mhm.
Teaching my methods at the school, things like that. I'm not saying that to brag. I could care less, but it's just the way it happened. So,
Mhm.
and then all of a sudden, I got a call from New England Conservatory. Would you like to teach here? And I said yes. And starting in 1995, I started teaching there, and that's what happened.
Very nice. Yeah. And your piano skills and bass skills you achieved early on simultaneously with the saxophone, or?
Yeah, kind of simultaneously.
Yeah.
My uncle, I mentioned, who lived upstairs, he sold us an upright bass because my brother wanted to learn how. He played it for a week and quit. So I
Mhm.
kept playing it. So I used to go do gigs on upright, but that kind of hurt my finger. So a friend of mine said, "Hey man, I got this gig playing behind strippers and singers every week,
Mhm.
and with this quartet, we want to play bass." I said, "Well, man, I'm gonna buy myself an electric bass." So I bought an amp and the electric bass. I went to the gig, and we're playing 4 nights a week, and it was a blast.
So have you
Just play
considered?
standard tunes. I just
Uh-huh.
used to look forward playing good bass lines, good
Uh-huh.
piano, and trying to swing with the drummer. That's all.
Uh-huh. Did you solo on the
Then I
bass
got
and
a
piano as well?
yeah. I mean, yeah.
Mhm.
I didn't do gigs on the piano. I played it at home. Kind of what I learned on the saxophone. I just
Mhm.
sit there like anybody would do, but through teaching all the time, I taught on the piano, so
Okay.
my skills got better and better.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's just what happened.
Mhm. Have you considered making a living just playing gigs on all those instruments, or was teaching something that you really liked and
No,
you had the outlet for all that?
great question. Yeah, I mean, at the time, you could make a terrible living playing music, you know, and but the gigs were, especially for saxophone, there weren't that many, and the
Okay.
ones were that were gigs that I didn't feel like doing, you
Uh-huh.
know, and so that's why teaching was preferable for me because at least I talked about the music I liked instead of playing music I didn't like.
Right.
You
Yeah. Yeah, I also like the play along tracks in those books. Like they're the quality of playing is for sure, but also the audio quality, and it's just a lot of fun to play with those
Sean,
records that you publish there in those books. It's amazing. It's
I
just,
have to say that you hit the nail on the head because I had got some Jamie Aebersold play-alongs, and this is not, thank God this is Jamie Aebersold, but I never enjoyed playing with him that much because the tempos rush and it all sounds a little nervous, and So, and come to find out that he's always having the rhythm section play along with a soloist.
Hmm.
With mine, I said, guys, I just want you to lay it out there so people have fun playing. There was no soloist. I just wanted to groove. So I always had good rhythm sections. So that's why I enjoy playing along with those myself.
So they recorded first as a trio, and you were later overdubbing on
Yeah,
top.
overdub.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah,
Mm,
overdub.
I see. Yeah, I remember. Is it Adam Nussbaum on all the tracks?
Yes. On most of them, it's Adam
Most.
Nussbaum.
Uh-huh.
On one of them, the first one is, oh man, I'm spacing now.
And is it David Santoro on the bass?
Dave
And
Santoro, Renato Kiko on
yeah.
sometimes,
Hmm.
Bruce Barth on some.
Yeah, it's swinging
Alan
back.
Dawson. Alan Dawson was the drummer on my
Okay.
first. He was Tony Williams' teacher.
Hmm.
Then Tom Melito is on drums in
Hmm.
one of those.
Hmm. Were those written sections that you were playing gigs with anyway, or you kind of
Yes,
hired the guys
yes,
for the?
yes. There were rhythm sections I was playing with anyway.
Okay. Mhm. Yes. Yeah. Uh, Something that I would like to know is for when you're working on something, like it can be just a device, can be tried, can be rhythmically something.
Yeah.
When you teach or when you practice yourself, there are things that you can keep track of yourself, like take an easy rhythm and move it through all the bars. But when you take something difficult and you're alone, how do you judge? Did you Was there any mistake, or
Well,
how can you check yourself in
you mean if
certain
you're not
kinds?
playing along with a rhythm track?
For example, yeah, if you, for example, I recently I tried to incorporate quintuplets into my playing. Like I wrote out like a blues chorus with 5 notes per
Yeah.
quarter, just to get the hang of it to go inside. But there was nobody to checking me if there were ones were 7 notes when I was improvising,
Yeah,
or
that's why.
four and a half.
I made when I first started doing that, which was 30 years ago, something like that,
Mhm.
35. I made myself play alongs, like 2/5s, like really easy tempo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 5, 2, 5. Go down the whole steps. So I
Mhm.
do 6 of the keys, then I do the other 6.
Mhm.
I made for 15 minutes on each one. I just recorded, and I just said, come hell or high water, I'm going to play quintuplets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So playing quintuplets. Daga daga da daga daga da daga daga da daga daga. It doesn't really learn, but if you go daga 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 da. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you're playing like eighth notes at a slower tempo.
Okay.
That's a whole different thing. So I
Mhm.
just got so I could do it, but I did it with a play along, and only because I could check myself. Otherwise, it's difficult.
Mhm.
But yeah, you can do it without something, just playing scales like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or even if 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, but
Mhm.
in quintuplets.
Mhm. Yeah.
There's so many different ways.
Right, but I mean, if there is nobody there in the room with you when you're practicing alone to tell you, that was it or that wasn't
Yeah.
so good. That's sometimes
Yeah,
the
it's
hard
kind of
part.
it's kind of fun to play that stuff with a play along because then you can really
Yeah,
hear it.
yeah. For example, there's this beautiful thing you're doing, like 3 notes over the bar. But I mean, I would have someone else next to me counting how many notes I've already played. In the
Oh yeah, yeah.
it's not. It's quite tricky, but it's so powerful devices. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're fun to play too, and they
Yeah.
make you play different instead of just playing bebop licks. They make you improvise.
Mhm. And another thing I'm curious about when you play with the rhythm section, it's of course how much is it that you're leading and how much you have to kind of surrender and play kind of what the piano player is comping you and forming you. Like he could play a flat 9, but you're playing the 9 and all that kind of stuff. How you stay in the front of a rhythm section and try to go with the flow, or
Uh, the rhythm section is supposed to follow the soloist,
Mhm.
and what I'm looking for in a rhythm section is one that makes me sound good. I
Mhm.
don't feel like following somebody so they can practice in different voicings, and
Mhm.
you know, it's a pain. I'd rather play without a piano player.
Mhm.
So unless the piano player, and if he's playing a flat 9, I'm going to usually hear it, but
Sure.
they have to do it. It's not like he can just, that it's a group effort, but it is. whose solo it is has that solo. I don't go play lines behind the piano solo. Hey man, why don't you play some stuff off of me? You know, it's my solo. And I really think that every piano player sounds great playing solos. Very few can know how to comp.
Yeah. Don't you think it has to do with there are some sets of piano voicings that everyone can learn and you can play through all the keys, but the top note, for example, is not necessarily what the soloing is helping, and those things sometimes they clash.
That's right, but I think the even more so is the rhythm,
Mm-hmm.
where they put the chord. You know, a lot of them just put it in weird spots. They're waiting for you to leave a rest, and they put the chord there, or they put it after they're playing reactive and not proactive.
Mm-hmm.
1, 2, 3, 4, 1, da, 1, da, and they're playing it after one set on the end of 4. They're not leading; they're following, and yeah, it's. I tell my students, hey, just transcribe the rhythms of Herbie Hancock, McCoy, Red Garland, Wynton Kelly, Bill Evans, Chick Corea. Transcribe the rhythms of their compa. It's not rocket science. You know, they all play the same thing, same rhythms.
Is it true that you play mostly with piano players? I haven't seen or heard you playing with guitar, or did you?
No, I love playing with guitars. I've recorded with John Abercrombie, of course, Mick Goodrich. I played with Pat Martino. I played with Wolfgang Muthspiel, Mike Stern, so many different players.
So you have done it,
yeah. I love playing with them. They're great.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. I guess there's more transparency in the kind of way that the guitar player comes.
Yeah, true.
Somehow they didn't.
With Peter Bernstein, I've got a gig coming up on the 23rd with George Arzon and Peter Bernstein.
Is there a sax holder, or is that?
Yeah, this is a.
Is it from?
Got it.
Is it from Sylvain, huh? I think it's a Czech guy living in Switzerland who does that thing. Yeah.
I think I got a defective one because these branches fall off everyone. But you know, if I, it's all good.
Is there new stuff that you're working all the time, or have you discovered an extra note, or?
You know, I'm right now. I'm just thinking about different articulations, things like that. You know. Because you've heard everybody say it's not what you play, it's how you play it. Well, I'm just trying to do different how you play it. You know, where to put the time and top of the beat, behind the beat, this, that, the other thing. Just thinking about those things.
And any plans to come to Europe, to Switzerland, or to give clinics, concerts, and stuff?
I just did a tour in February in the UK. In May, I was touring in Spain. I did Basel and Paris. I just did 2.5 weeks in in Denmark. I played in Berlin. I played in Rome. I played in Macron in France, Macron, and I'm supposed to go back to Europe in October for 2.5 weeks with this Danish trio.
Excuse me, with what? With Danish trio?
Danish trio that we're working all over the place. They didn't send me they sent me the dates, but they didn't send me the itinerary. Of course, I know it's going to be some gigs in Denmark, but they'll probably get some gigs in, you know, other countries as well.
So the rhythm section is Danish?
Yes. Yeah. Anders Mogensen on drums, fantastic drummer. Carl Winter on piano, and Johnny Oman on bass. He's Finnish, but lives in Malmo, Sweden, which is right over the bridge from Copenhagen.
I just saw a masterclass that you gave in Aarhus. Were those guys on the stage?
Yeah, those guys.
Yeah, you guys sounded great there on that stage. Yeah, somebody filmed it.
Yeah.
And your collaboration with Renato, the piano player, but he lives in Austria. I
yeah, he lives in Graz.
in Graz.
Because he's teaching at that school in Graz, and we got a tour next summer, but you know we'd like to do a recording, another organ, drums, and tenor recording, and we're talking about what material to play and all that stuff. I told him, hey man, come over, come and visit me. Let's go in the studio over here and make a recording. You know, so
at that point of your career, are there people that just tell you, can you come to my university to give a clinic, or is it you that is actually searching the planet for where can I go again?
You know, I've got a great life. I have 2 steady gigs a week, and usually there's more. So I don't care if I ever travel again. I've done enough. But so I keep getting calls. Would you do this tour with me? So I don't set it up. They set it up and they hire me. So yeah, that sort of thing. I don't have a promoter or manager. People just email me, hey Jerry, can you do this? Because I don't have enough cachet in my name. I don't make the big money that the super guys make, you know.
So with the Danish trio, you're gonna come to Switzerland? You know that by any chance, or to Basel or Zurich or somewhere? Bern?
Oh, I haven't heard of that. I haven't heard. Yeah.
Yeah. Would love to hear you live.
Yeah. Well,
maybe you can tell me. Maybe I can get in touch with that rhythm section and ask them what their plan is.
Anders, Anders.
Yes,
you want me to give you his email?
I can remember Anders.
Okay, Anders. Hold on a second. Anders Mogensen. Mogensen.
Can you remember? Okay.
Yeah, and he has a email is Anders Mogensen at iCloud.com.
Okay.
iCloud.com. Yeah, it's easy. Anders, Anders, Mogensen. In Denmark, we'll go, Anders Mogensen. Yeah.
This will be this October. I understood you correctly.
Yes, this October. Probably, and he's probably got some dates to fill. So give him a buzz.
Yeah, well, it's short notice. I hope I can find something. Yeah, to recommend.
Well, even if you don't, we'll figure out the following year, whatever, you know.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so was it? I'm trying to find a nice outro here. Maybe you have something you would like to tell. Just I was thinking about more like the tenor is your main voice, right?
Yes.
Besides all the instruments and composing and what else you're doing, you just this is.
I've got a new soprano. It's got a new saxello that I've got a great soprano. It's a Dave Walker soprano. He used to make instruments at the Armati factory, but I think they went bankrupt. So he made a great tenor. And anyway, I've got a valve trombone in my house. I've got a piano. I got a set of drums and a whole bunch of cymbals. I'm playing these Spizzichino cymbals now. I really love them. And yeah, so I'm having a great time.
What about the bass clarinet? Ever occurred to you?
Yeah, I have a bass clarinet. I play it every once in a while. I should record on it.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah.
Well, then I will get in touch with Anders and hope I can
Simon, it's great to talk to you, man. I appreciate it.
Just to hear in Basel or somewhere, that would be nice. Yeah.
Great.
Thank you very much for joining me, Jerry.
Do you ever see Peter? You ever see Peter Klein?
Not Peter, but I have jammed once with him. But I know his brother David, who plays the drums.
Yeah. Well, give them both my love, please. Thank you.
I will do that. Yeah.
Okay.
My pleasure, Jerry. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Simon. Take care.
See you. Bye-bye.